It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
Welcome to it. This is ZiFM Sport on a Wednesday, wacky Wednesday, the lockdown edition. From our homes to the comfort of your homes, you'll hear from Barry Manandi, Mike Madoda, Mark Paz, Chris, and Alois Bunjira. My name is Sean Tafirenyika. I'm the producer for ZiFM Sport. I hope you're staying at home and keeping safe as we fight together against the spread of the coronavirus. Tonight is about painting a picture with words. This is radio after all. I want to hear from you. What's the best sports experience you've ever had as a fan? What's the best sports experience you've ever had as a fan? Which game did you go to that had your blood rushing, that absorbed you into the atmosphere, the one you remember clear as day? I want to hear all about it. Hit us up on social media. The handle is at ZiFM Sport on Facebook and Twitter. So while you're thinking about that, let's give you a local sports news roundup with Mike. He'll give us news from the home front in cricket, some administrative news, as well as the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League.
The home front. Local sports news and analysis.
Let's get you up to date with what's happening on the home front, starting with cricket news, where Zimbabwe national cricket team fast bowler Tendai Chatara is relishing a return to competitive cricket when the domestic game finally resumes, having been sidelined for the last 3 months due to a bicep injury. The 29-year-old Chimanimani-born seamer suffered a bicep injury while in action for his domestic team Mountaineers in December, which subsequently ruled him out of Zimbabwe's home test series against Sri Lanka and the tour of Bangladesh. Chatara's absence was particularly felt during the national team's Bangladesh tour, as Zimbabwe's new look attack, which was also missing the experienced Kyle Jarvis, found the going tough in the unfamiliar subcontinent conditions. In news of a sports administrative nature, the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, are considering extending the IOC membership of the Athletes Commission representatives whose terms would have expired at this year's Olympic Games in Tokyo. Zimbabwe's Minister of Youth, Sport, Arts and Recreation, Kirsty Coventry, is the chairperson of the IOC Athletes Commission. It is likely the Athletes Commission elections that has been planned for this year's Olympics will take place during the rescheduled games in 2021. And we wrap it up with news out of the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League, where Dynamo's board chairperson Bernard Marriott has rubbished that the Glamour Boys were mooting a sensational pullout from the Premier Soccer League in protest over what they claimed were meager sponsorship returns from Delta Beverages. Sources had claimed that the country's most successful club had raised the red flag over the PSL package from Delta Beverages, which they felt was too little compared to the mileage that the beverages manufacturer through their Castle brand was getting. Marriott said such talk is the imagination of enemies of progress, as they were happy with the work being done by the Premier Soccer League.
Hi, I'm Clemens Matau, chicken in midfielder. You're listening to ZiFM Sports.
Now let's face it, there are a lot of good things about being a sports fan. Between the heartbreaking losses by your favorite teams and the depressing news of your favorite player leaving and joining another club, one of the best things about being a sports fan is actually experiencing events live. Going to stadiums, going to basketball courts, going to watch swimming, being there in person, live and direct. So what's the best sports experience you've ever had as a fan? Let's start with Barry, who took in a Premier League match live and direct in England.
My iconic sporting venue is extracted out of the English Premier League, and it was a day to remember. It was my first experience of the then Barclays Premier League, and this story is less to do with the venue because it wasn't one of the iconic ones. It's more to do with the occasion and its significance in my life. It was December 2006, and I was in London for the Christmas holidays. Shopping and the commercial element of the season, which you all know, had hit fever pitch, and everywhere you went, there were people. Lots and lots of people. So the last thing I wanted to do was to join in that frenzy, least of all on a Saturday afternoon. Besides, this was to be the day when my beloved Liverpool was coming to London. My cousin Kudzi, with whom I was staying, suggested that it could have been a good idea to try and get tickets for the game and watch it. Apparently, he knew a guy. Nonetheless, the guy let him down, and by Friday night, I had made the harebrained idea and scheme of just going down to the game and trying to get scalp tickets outside the venue. The opponent was Charlton Athletic, then a Premier League team, albeit already in the murky waters of relegation. And also, Rafael Benitez was already getting the best out of the team that he had assembled. We were top 4, if I remember correctly. We would have to leave fairly early to make sure we were able to get the tickets and ensure we were in the stadium for the lunchtime kickoff. So we left at about 9 a.m. After a short walk to the Catford train station, catching the Woolwich line, in under an hour we were at the Charlton Village station. It was here that we already started to feel the atmosphere of a game. This wasn't even a big game in the strictest sense, but what it does make you realize is that football in that part of the world is very much a geographical thing. Teams have huge followings in the areas from which they come. Charlton Athletic fans were congregated at pubs, restaurants and eateries all the way through the walk to the stadium. A very few short turns, and there it was, the Valley Stadium, home of Charlton Athletic, the Addicts. We were blessed that one of the few occasions that it did, the sun managed to break through the clouds and made for the day, not being bitterly cold, but still there was a brisk wind cutting across our uncovered faces. We made a beeline for the ticket office at the stadium on the off chance that we could still get something through the official channels. It wasn't to be. Instead, they were selling tickets for the next Charlton home match, which I can't remember what it was going to be. But no sooner had we turned from the ticket office did we start receiving offers from ticket touts. A short negotiation, and £120 later, we were all set. We opted to grab a quick bite before we got into the stadium, and there was a pub at the top of the road in which we found refuge. It was packed. Eventually, getting a quick pie and a drink, arriving a little earlier, proved to be the right decision. Eventually, we made our way to the stadium, and after a seamless entry where we only interacted with one person to check our tickets, we were at our seats. The only downside being we were separated by 3 seats in between us, and we were in the home section of the stadium. But we weren't complaining. Even Kudzi, who's a Chelsea fan, was enjoying himself. It was smaller than I expected, but being one of the older stadiums in London, but still had a reasonable layout that ensured that we were able to find our seats quite easily. A few minutes later, my seatmates had arrived, and by an act of God, there were 3 Scousers. Very friendly, and were pleased that they were sitting with another Liverpool fan, in me. It made me look around, and there were more LFC shirts around us than I had initially realized. Obviously, these were people in London who supported Liverpool. What astounded me was that when the teams were warming up, the stadium was only at about a third of its capacity, and literally 10 minutes before kickoff was absolutely chock-a-block full. Clearly, the stadium entry system that we had gone through was so seamless, and people absolutely trusted it. It was loud. Absolutely loud. The songs and chants were ringing out from both sets of fans, and albeit the Liverpool fans were outnumbered, they made enough noise to respond to the chants flung their way by the Addicts fans. Before a ball was even kicked, I was given a nickname by my new Scouse friends. As they were singing, they noticed I wasn't. They turned to me and said, "Oi, Ferrari, come on, let's sing." I was wearing my favorite Ferrari bomber jacket that day, and as opposed to using my name, I was christened Ferrari. All I remember is that we sang a song for Craig Bellamy. We sang about the Liverpool midfield, which was the best in the world. We said it was the best midfield in the world. We cheered on our captain, fantastic Stevie G. And when he came on, Luis Garcia, my favorite player of the time, also received his chance. Luis Garcia. Luis Garcia. It was phenomenal. And the fact that we won an early penalty in that game made an experience all the more enjoyable, with the ever-reliable Xavi Alonso coolly tucking the penalty away. Goals from Craig Bellamy and Stevie G made the final 3-0 scoreline a very good afternoon. This was money well spent. After the game, we went back to the pub, which we had been earlier, and we went with our newfound friends. We had drinks discussing Zimbabwe and Africa while they narrated their experience of leaving Liverpool and staying in London, and how there's no place like Liverpool, and most of all, no place like Anfield. To this day, I still haven't made my pilgrimage to Anfield, but from what I've heard from those fellas that day, and subsequently from colleagues like Mike and Paz, I will savor it soon.
Oh, a Ferrari! Oh, that's fantastic. I'll never call Barry by his name again. From this day forth, we shall call him Ferrari. Now, in 2006, that Liverpool team ended the season third. They also won the Community Shield, and they were runners-up in the UEFA Champions League. And guess who they lost to? They lost to AC Milan 2-1. Of course, Milan getting revenge for that miracle in Istanbul. Barry, Ferrari. Ferrari. In that 2006 game, he got to watch players such as Steven Gerrard, Dirk Kuyt, and like he mentioned, Luis Garcia, and of course, Xavi Alonso. And now while we're on that football tip, my German Bundesliga team is Borussia Dortmund, BVB. I dream of the day out taking a game at the Westfalenstadion, mixing it up with the Yellow Wall. And one person who got to do that is Alois.
The best was when we went to Westfalen Stadion. You know, Westfalen Stadion, the home of Borussia Dortmund. You know, I should say, guys, you know, that experience was one of the best I've ever had. You know, not just about the football, but the whole setup. You know, we were driven from our hotel to the stadium, and everybody had a tag. You know, nobody goes onto that field, including the owner of Borussia Dortmund. He can't go onto that field without a ticket. You know, so he had his own tag, and we went in early. We actually got there early, much earlier than everybody else, because it was still quiet. People were not coming in yet. We went to the van, the TV van, and all that, to the OB van. We went to the TV crew. We spoke to everybody, the journalists, and all that. We went through the whole media process, you know, about the game, you know, how they were setting up their cameras, and we were told that at least 36 cameras for every match. It's at least, but for that match they were talking about 72 cameras for that match alone. Borussia Dortmund were taking on Bayer Leverkusen, you know, on that day. You know, remember Lewandowski was still there. I think it was still like in 2015 years, and it was a very, very, very good game. But just to be there, you know, when you got there, we were ushered to the VIP, and the VIP was like we were in a like a party. It was like a party. It was like a party. You know, everything was there, self-service, you know, buffet, drinks, you know, bottomless. You can just order anything you want. You know, you can actually decide not to watch the match inside the stadium. You can actually watch the match in the dining room, you know, where there are big screens. You know, they've got big screens of the match being screened in the dining room of the match that is actually there. You know, you can actually decide to watch it live or watch it on the big screen while you're eating and drinking, you know. So it was like so much fun there. And you know, the match itself was wow, because that was my first time, you know, to see live that war. You know, when they talk about the yellow war at Borussia Dortmund matches, you know, you would think that maybe it's just on TV. You know, we were seeing it. We were like sitting right opposite on the other side of the other goal, and we were facing directly the yellow wall. The way they were moving, you know, when they say that the yellow wall moves, it does move for real. You know, they go together to the left, they go together to the right, they jump together up. You know, it was amazing, and it was quite an experience. And then after the match, they gave us the opportunity to actually go to the media center to talk to the players, to see how the media interacts with the players and all that. We could actually see the players, the Borussia Dortmund players, like right there, you know, up close and personal, and greeting them, signing autographs, getting into the changing rooms and all that. And these changing rooms, you know, when we talk about homologation here in Zimbabwe, we're talking about people struggling to just fix a bench, but those guys, they've got stadium, they've got bench chairs that it's like you're sitting in a car, when you're sitting at your place in the changing room. It was something else, and that experience alone, I was left in awe. After the match, we had to go to the sports shop. The sports shop is right in the stadium, next to the stadium, and it was packed. And I think for 3 hours there were still queues outside the stadium. 3 hours after the match, people were still queuing at the shop to buy regalia. We went inside. I bought my t-shirt, my hat for Borussia Dortmund. You remember, I'm a Borussia Dortmund fan, and it was actually quite nice to actually buy regalia at the Borussia shop right there, original. It was a day to remember. I'm a BVB fan, and that day I will never forget it. And I hope that we bring such scenario, we bring such setup in Zimbabwe, so that we can actually enjoy the wholeness of professional football.
Z.
Fantastic from Alois. I could see that yellow wall moving in my head. A little fun fact, that yellow wall that's located on the southern terrace of the stadium is actually the largest freestanding grandstand in Europe. 25,000. That is the capacity. I mean, that is so intimidating. Imagine how the visiting team feels. And there's that talk of Germany having the best football atmosphere in the world. The way I've heard it being described is that it literally shakes in the stadium. That's how ferocious the atmosphere in the stadium is. Absolutely electric. Let's now hear from Chris, who in 2018 watched the epic rugby championship game between the Springboks of South Africa and the All Blacks of New Zealand.
So in 2018, ZiFM Sport got the opportunity to go to watch a rugby championship match between South Africa and New Zealand, and probably one of the best rugby experiences I've ever had. And that's likely due to the stadium itself and the organization that existed around the match. So in terms of logistics and getting to the stadium itself, pretty easy. There was some traffic on the highway, obviously, because hundreds of people are going to watch this match from Joburg and surrounding areas as well. So vehicles are stopped a distance away. I'm going to estimate it and say maybe 800 meters from the actual stadium entry points. So that reduced a lot of the congestion, and it allowed for free movement of people to get to the stadium. On your way to the stadium, lots of stands there for you to be able to purchase fanware, merchandise, all of that's good stuff. And the entry points and the ease of access for me was one of the things that I'll probably never forget about this experience. Is your ticket has your ticket number, seat, etc., and it also has the gate number. So immediately when you're headed to the stadium, you know which gate you're going to, which is closest to your seat. So that was really great in terms of controlling the traffic. That way you don't have thousands of people waiting for one or two entry points. It's all the entry points around the stadium that are used to make sure there's that ease of access. What was really cool for us was our gate was right next to the entry point that's used by the players when they're disembarking their bus. So we got to see the All Blacks really up close. And the atmosphere itself in the stadium, I think the organizers did a really good job of creating that match day atmosphere. It was everything from the luminous flames to the DJ, the sound system crisp, and you really knew you were in for a show before the match even started. The actual game itself also lived up to the billing. Absolute thriller. The All Blacks came back from halftime and simply plowed into the Springboks. It was only in the last quarter that they managed to actually secure the winning points for this match, 19 unanswered points in the final quarter. And if truth be told, the All Blacks were far from their best, but that competition coming from the Springboks made it an absolute thriller to watch, and especially live in the stadium. There's something different about watching a match in the stadium and watching it on TV. TV gives you great angles and all of that, but nothing beats that stadium atmosphere, which I think is a result of the organizers paying a lot of attention to detail. They're making sure that at every point you are entertained. Halftime is no different. Also watching the players even just warm up right at the beginning. They're really up close and you're seeing these players you normally just see on TV. Very cool experience. The stadium design itself, 51,000 capacity. It's used for both rugby and football, and was actually used for cricket right up until around 1962. And the stadium was constructed from 1906. Initially, it was just called the Eastern Sports Ground. It was just another sports ground. But when the All Blacks traveled to South Africa for a tour that year, it was 1928, the Pretoria Sub-Union actually made a lot of profit, and they used that to convert it from just a sports ground, and they actually started to erect changing rooms and toilets and to expand it. That experience, absolutely cool. If you want to watch some rugby, Loftus Fairfield Stadium.
Z. What a game at Loftus that was. And Chris perfectly described that match day experience. I mean, Adi Sevilla scoring that last minute try in the 79th minute to give New Zealand a 32-30 win over South Africa. I mean, when the Boks were 30 up and it was only 13 for New Zealand, I thought New Zealand were gonna get beat, and it was gonna be the first time in I think in about 9 years that South Africa would have beaten the All Blacks back to back in the same year. Because remember, a couple of weeks ago, South Africa beat the All Blacks 36-34 in Wellington. So the All Blacks were somewhat on a revenge mission, and I thought they had it. I really thought they did. But that game, epic encounter, and it's amazing that Chris was there. Now, while we're on that rugby tip, Pause went down to the mother city for the Cape Town Sevens last year.
So we're going to talk about Cape Town Stadium now. I was obviously lucky enough to visit Cape Town Stadium when it was actually built in 2010 for the Soccer World Cup, which was staged in South Africa, and what a showpiece that was. But as the years have progressed and as various other sporting venues have started to sort of fade away due to, I wouldn't say neglect, but basically facilities that needed a facelift, Cape Town Stadium basically offers everything. And one of the things you always say about property is location, location, location. And Cape Town Stadium is suitably placed. We'll talk about Newlands a little bit later on, because Newlands will always have a place in a lot of people's hearts. But Cape Town Stadium, I was lucky enough to go just at the beginning of December for the HSBC round of the Cape Town Sevens. And what an experience it was. And not just the rugby, which was spectacular, and the actual showpiece that was put on by Cape Town for the rugby sevens. I mean, from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, it's just, there's something happening in that stadium. There's such a buzz. But what I'm trying to get to is that the stadium is perfect for everything. It's a multi-purpose stadium. You can have a football match there. You can have a tennis match there, as we saw Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal playing tennis there. You can have a rugby match there. It is a multi-purpose stadium that I think was so cleverly built and fantastic. I mean, just to get up and go to the toilet facilities, and the way it's done, the in and the out, the queuing is limited. It is just fantastic. The work and thought that went into that stadium is just phenomenal. Same with the food outlets. I mean, you want something to eat, something to drink, on all levels and in all the different bays. There's food and drink available. Queues very small. I mean, during the rugby, what Cape Town did during the Cape Town Sevens, which was brilliant, is that to keep the crowd in there, they obviously made South Africa's games play later on in the day, so people would stay to build up towards watching South Africa. They did that on the first day, the second day, and of course lucky that South Africa got to the final, only to lose to New Zealand in the final. But what I'm trying to say is that when it was full, the stadium was packed. I would say maximum during waiting for a South African game, I would say there were 50,000 people in there. And you know what? To get up and go to do either of two things, go to the toilet or go to get something to eat or drink, the queues were minimal. And that's just because everything in the stadium works. It's a fantastic stadium that I believe will be one of the icons of South African sport for years to come. We will see a lot more international rugby matches being played there, and we'll touch on that now, because basically what's happened is that Newlands is coming to an end. The stadium, which boasts a stunning 130-year history, is in its final season, and it looks like it's going to be demolished, and everything will be moved to the Cape Town Stadium. That will be, of course, Western Province and the Stormers, which they will use the Cape Town Stadium as their new home. But the the final test match for Newlands is the box test against Scotland, which is scheduled for July. But because of the corona outbreak and that test match has been postponed, it hasn't been cancelled. So Newlands, guys, when this happens, that the final test match to be played at Newlands, it'll be something special to remember in history, that the final game played at Newlands was the box against Scotland before they moved to their new home. 130 years of some great history at Newlands, but you know what, like everything, things need to move on, and the Cape Town Stadium is the perfect venue, and I believe one of the finest stadiums you'll find in Africa.
Z.
I 100% agree with Paz. That Cape Town Stadium is a work of art. It's beautiful. The Stormers are moving their next season and we're expected to play host to more big matches. Remember when Roger Federer beat Rafael Nadal in that charity match played at the Cape Town Stadium in February? That crowd was 51,954 people, and it actually set a world record for a tennis match. That's the magnitude of an event that Cape Town Stadium can host. What a world-class venue. We've heard about football and rugby. Now let's go to cricket, where one of the best sports experiences Mike has ever had was at the Cricket World Cup last year at Lord's.
You know what? I just love sports events. Before being a pundit, before being a media personality, I was a fan, and that's where I started. That's where I kicked off. And so I've always enjoyed going to different stadia, going to different events, and witnessing what happens there. And it's not just about what happens on the field of play. It's also what's happening in the grandstands with the fans and the whole experience that just makes it memorable. And so if I have to choose for me the most memorable event and or a fascinating one that I've had to attend, I would say that last year I had the privilege of being the only Zimbabwe media personality at the Cricket World Cup, and I went to watch England taking on Australia at Lord's during the group stages, and what a wonderful occasion it was. The whole experience was just fantastic. Ease of entrance, everything is smooth, whether it's for the fans or the media, everything is smooth. There's no queuing at the gates, and if you do queue, it's only for a short time, and the experience is made proper because of the stewarding and because of the information that you're constantly given, so that you know what exactly is happening and why you are doing what you're doing. Security, top notch. You get into Lord's, and Lord's has just got this history and regal and royalty that reeks from the place. I mean, it's a fantastic place to play cricket, and I love how, with the recent development or refurbishment of Lord's that have happened in the last 2 decades, they've managed to fuse the old with the new. So Lord's retains that old-fashioned British charm in the main pavilion with the red brick face and so forth. And then you've got the stunning media center, which is located the other side of the ground. A really fantastic facility which accommodates the world's press and some of the leading cricket pundits in the world. And there I was rubbing shoulders with the likes of course, Zimbabwe-born Mpumelelo Mbangwa, the likes of Michael Clarke, the former Australian cricketer. All those guys were in there, and you get to meet them, and they avail to you the best of facilities and the best of service. And the match that I watched, Australia beating England, fantastic bowling performance, especially by Australia. Mitchell Starc was at his best, Pat Cummins as well, and they quickly tore into England. I think they had England 4 down for less than 100, about 60 or 70 actually, and then Ben Stokes came in, tried to do some damage, but in the end he was undone by a fantastic Mitchell Yorker. He couldn't keep it out, and England was well beaten on that day. But in the stands, Lord's was chock-a-block. The place was sold out. Of course, the majority of them, I've got to say, about 90% were English fans backing the home side, rooting for the home side. And then there was a fair few number that were supporting Australia, and of course some of the neutrals. And the songs that were being sung, the banter, the mirth in the stands, everything fantastic. I love how, they keep fans involved. There's plenty of entertainment that's going on during the match. And it just made for such a fascinating occasion, and an occasion that I will not quickly forget. So for me, Lord's certainly one of the most memorable places that I've ever been as a sports fan and as a pundit.
I feel like I was there with Mike. He painted a magnificent picture of Lord's. The place reeks of royalty, he says. I mean, England lost that match, but they went on to win the World Cup at the same venue, beating New Zealand. Remember that dramatic final. Now, an interesting thing about Lord's is that the cricket ground is called the Mecca of cricket because it was the first officially built ground for the game of cricket. It was named Lord's, honoring the architect Thomas Lords. So the history is certainly rich, and it's super cool that our very own Mike Madora got to experience the venue firsthand. You know, one of the pleasures in life are live sporting events. I absolutely love them as well. And I just hope that after this coronavirus pandemic, we'll get them back and we'll double down even more by having a lot more of them spread across the country and all over the world. Because, there's so many games, there's so many iconic stadiums that I still want to go to. Lords, the Vashvallen Stadium, the Cape Town Stadium, Loftus, even that stadium in London. Well, but in London, I'd like to go to the Emirates, though. I'm not going to go to the Valley Stadium. All right, now up next, it's Around the World in 60 with Chris as we catch up with the latest in international sports, and then our power play on a wacky Wednesday.
Around the World in 60 seconds. International sports news.
We take off in Canada, where the Canadian Grand Prix has become the 9th 2020 Formula One race to be called off, with the season now delayed until late June at the earliest. The Montreal event, which is scheduled to take place on the 14th of June, has been postponed due to the coronavirus, with no new date confirmed. Promoters for the Grand Prix say the decision has not been taken lightly or easily, but that they're following the expert guidance provided by the authorities. We head over to England, where Ben Stokes has become the first Englishman since 2005 to be named Wisden leading cricketer in the world. Stokes played a leading role in England's World Cup victory in July and was named man of the match in the final. The 28-year-old scored a stunning 135 not out to lead England to a thrilling one-wicket victory over Australia in the third Ashes Test at Headingley. Andrew Flintoff was the last England men's player to receive the award. England captain Virat Kohli has won it for the past 3 years. Down in the US, where Serena Williams coach Patrick Mouratoglou has called on tennis governing bodies to devise a way of helping lower-level professionals struggling financially due to the coronavirus shutdown. The tennis season was halted in early March due to the pandemic, leaving players in the lower tiers who solely depend on tournament winnings without the opportunity to earn a living. In a letter posted on Twitter and addressed to the tennis community, Mouratoglou said that the current situation showed how dysfunctional the sport was.
Hi, this is Mike Madura. You can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station, my station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z-Team on ZiFM Sport.
You're tuning into ZiFM Stereo, my station, your station. This is a lockdown edition of ZiFM Sport. Let's keep the interaction going. The handle is at ZiFM Sport on Facebook and Twitter. You can reach us directly by searching for our names: Barry Menandi, Mike Madoda, Mark Poz, Chris Alois, and Sean Tafirenyika. Now, coming up are updates from the beautiful game. Let's catch up with what's happening in the world of football. It's Mike with La Liga, Alois with the Premier League, Poz with the Bundesliga, Chris with Serie A, and Barry rounds us off with the South African ABSA Premiership.
The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport. The league that makes football oh so beautiful, where artistry and strokes of genius are the order of any day, where the game is played with a smile and the little master creates his magic.
It's Lionel Messi!
All the news from the Spanish La Liga on ZiFM Sport.
The goal the world wants it!
We kick off the beautiful game in Spain, where Uruguayan hitman Luis Suarez, he views Barcelona's reported interest in fellow forwards Neymar and Lautaro Martinez as an encouraging sign. PSG star Neymar continues to be linked to the return to the Camp Nou, having won 2 La Liga titles and a Champions League, playing alongside Suarez during his previous stint at the club. He is not the only striker reportedly on Barca's radar, though, with Internacional's Martinez, another attacker thought to be considered an intriguing prospect to the Blaugrana hierarchy. And so it's an interesting one, this one. Barcelona are in search of a Champions League title. That's the one trophy that they've come out repeatedly and said it's the one they want. They've won enough La Liga titles. If you take a look at their record in Spain over the last 11 years, they've won 8 La Liga titles of the 11 that were on offer. The other 2 going to Real Madrid, and of course 1 going to Atletico Madrid. So as far as La Liga is concerned, their dominance is certain. They've been the standout performer in their local league over the last decade. But the trophy that they yearn for is the Champions League. They haven't won it in the last 5 years. They last won it in 2015 when they had, of course, that famous trident in attack of Messi, Neymar and Suarez. And there's no doubt Luis Suarez is thinking back to 2015, how they clicked as an attack, how they clicked as a team. And if you bring back Neymar to that mix and then you add Lautaro Martinez as well, it looks like it could be exciting times at the Camp Nou. Lionel Messi now has become a bit withdrawn as an attacker, playing more in midfield, but still getting the goals, still getting the assists. He leads the charts when it comes to goals over the last number of seasons in La Liga, and he also leads the charts in terms of assists in Europe. So he's certainly a fantastic playmaker. And so if Lionel Messi can drop into midfield and then you have an attack that features Luis Suarez, Lautaro Martinez and Neymar, that is going to be a deadly prospect. Lionel Messi, of course, playing behind them in the hole, possibly wide, in tandem with the likes of Frankie de Jong and Sergei Busquets and other midfielders, of course, that they have in their ranks. So Luis Suarez seeing these 2 additions not as competition and not as a threat, but just the right sort of quality that will see Barcelona get back to winning ways and Barcelona threatening at the very top of European football. And for Barcelona, it's always been about entertainment. It's always been about goals. It's always been about winning matches. So it's never been about having necessarily great defenders. That's why you rarely hear of Barcelona going out there and paying 75 million or 80 million like Liverpool did for Virgil van Dijk or Manchester United did for Harry Maguire. It's always been about the philosophy that we can retain the ball. That's how we defend. We keep the ball, make sure that you can't score, and then more often than not, we will score more than you. And with Martinez and of course Neymar being prospective signings, no doubt Uruguayan Luis Suarez will be licking his chops at the prospects of possibly more and more medals coming to the Camp Nou.
Z. All the rivalry.
Here is Harry Kane for Tottenham. Oh, what a goal! A classic derby goal from Harry Kane. Catch him if you can.
All the stars.
Back here's Liverpool 2 in front. Talk about impudence. Talk about improvisation. Talk about Sadio Mane.
And all the game-changing moments.
And Raheem Sterling rattles it home. And once more, City are in front in a trice.
All the updates from the Premier League on ZiFM Sport.
And in England, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is confident that Manchester United will do the business in the transfer market when football returns. With the coronavirus pandemic holding football and its return date still up in the air, clubs may use the downtime to firm up their targets in the transfer market, which may also be delayed, and use digital scouting techniques to get their players that they have targeted. Yeah, when it comes to Manchester United, Ole Gunnar is actually talking about pushing ahead with their transfer targets, and he is actually talking about how the club is going to compete in the market. He is very confident that with the might of Manchester United, they can actually compete for the top players that they need, and obviously they will have to accelerate their chase for the players. You know, with the postponement of football right now, I think it's actually time. He is very right. It's actually time for Manchester United United to actually look for their targets, push for them right now, and actually be in a very good position to actually lure them to Manchester United for next season. We are talking about next season here because Manchester United are 5th on the log right now and they're pushing for top 4. So when they qualify for top 4, they actually are hoping that, with the Champions League football, they might be able to lure top players to Manchester United. Obviously, top players in the world, around the world, they want to play Champions League football, and Manchester United, they will do well for themselves if they qualify for the Champions League. Their form was very good before we went on to the break, the first break by coronavirus. The form Manchester United were in, it looks like they're most likely going to make it into the top 4, and also with the suspension of Manchester City from the Champions League, they might just qualify for the Champions League is in number 5 as well. So they look a sure bet for Champions League football if they maintain the form that they have. So I think he is on course. He is right to actually say that Manchester United will compete for places for players in the transfer market come I wanted to say the summer, but I don't think it's going to be the summer now. I think the transfer season is also going to be delayed as well. But also a good other positive for Manchester United is that Marcus Rashford is injured. Pogba is also recovering as well. I think this postponement has given them time to actually recover. They might just come in time for the last 9 games of the season, and that is very good for Manchester United because they give them that oomph going forward, and they are pushing for a top 4 finish, and that would be very good for Manchester United if Pogba and Marcus Rashford return for the club as well. So you can actually see how confident Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is about the return of his players and the might of Manchester United as well. And silently, I think he's confident because of the form that they were in before the forced postponement, before the forced abandonment of the league as well. So I think for Manchester United, they might just be thinking about getting back to the old ways. They're a big team. They're a big team in England. They're a big team in the world, and they need to retain their status as one of the biggest teams in the world. Something that has eluded them. Something that has gone away from them. But silently, even the fans, they actually believe that if there was any time that the team can actually get back to that time, to those status, I think this is actually the time. And you can also hear that he feels that this break also given Manchester United fresh legs. They will come back with guns blazing for the last 9 games. He has always been confident that whenever there was a big break like this, a bit of a break like this, Manchester United came back stronger. And obviously this has been the time also for them to see family, to relax, to spend more time with their families. Ole Gunnar is not from England. Probably he went back home to lock down there. We don't really know. But I think it has been a very good time for players, coaches, all the people, stakeholders involved in clubs to actually spend time with their families and come back fresh. So he is actually hoping also, and also the fans as well, they are hoping that Manchester United will come back stronger after this coronavirus break and challenge for the top 4. That is what, sometimes silently, even fans from other clubs, a big Manchester United, a firing Manchester United is actually good for football, it's actually good for the EPL. So probably some other fans of other clubs, they are silently hoping that Manchester United do well so that they can reignite, the passion for football in England and passion for football in the world as well. So let's wait and see what happens when football returns after this coronavirus pandemic.
Z. The Nerazzurri, the Black and Blues, Inter Milan.
It's Romelu Lukaku, and it was never in doubt. He's a beast at the best of times, but this season he has become a monster.
The Giallorossi, the Yellow and Reds, AS Roma.
Velotti has a go! Tremendous hits! That's what he's capable of.
La Viola, the Purple Ones, Fiorentina.
Franck Ribéry seals a glorious win for Fiorentina with a sumptuous goal at San Siro.
The Bianconeri, the Black and Whites, Juventus.
Ronaldo seals yet another 3 points for Juventus.
Tough yet colourful. The best of Italian football on Z.
La Liga chief Javier Tebas has heavily criticized Serie A's finances following talk Inter Milan was a realistic destination for Barcelona forward Lionel Messi. Ex-Inter president Massimo Moratti told an Italian radio station that he felt Inter signing the six-time Ballon d'Or winner was no longer a forbidden dream. However, Tebas said Serie A's financial issues ran so deep that not even signing Messi would help. Now, if you're wondering just how deep these issues run, an Italian newspaper called La Gazzetta dello Sport has estimated that the league will lose around 700 million euros due to the enforced break caused by COVID-19. And it's been suggested that Messi moving for Barca would give Serie A a huge financial boost. But 700 million euros is not an easy gap to close, and it's likely going to take a lot more than a few signings. And even though those signings will include players top of their game like Lionel Messi, it's not likely that that'll be enough to actually close that dent that's been caused by the coronavirus outbreak. In as much as every league needs its great players, another thing that needs to be noted here is that that's not all that makes up a league, and there are many more factors that Serie A needs to be aware of in terms of how they're going to be generating and closing that 700 million euro gap. And Lionel Messi himself leaving Spain and leaving La Liga, in as much as we never thought it would happen with Cristiano Ronaldo, it is a possibility. He's getting into the twilight years of his career, and it may not be possible for him to remain in La Liga. But if he was to leave and move to Serie A, will it close the gap? Not likely. In terms of data, likelihood is that data will show that they will definitely get a boost in terms of the media sales that come from players coming onto a league like Lionel Messi. But 700 million euros, Serie A is going to have to dig deep.
Z. Horsepower unmatched. Torque to beat the best. Speed unrivaled. Sleek and easy on the eye. Let's get behind the wheel of football engineered to perfection. The Bundesliga, made in Germany.
To the Bundesliga, and all Bundesliga clubs have returned to training for the first time since the season was suspended due to the coronavirus pandemic. Most teams, including champions and current league leaders Bayern Munich, returned to training in small groups on Monday after the German Football League's recommendation to stop group practice expired. So Werder Bremen returned to the training ground on Tuesday morning after they were the last team to get the go-ahead from the state. It's just interesting how they're going about it state by state. Borussia Dortmund, on the other hand, who trail Bayern by 4 points, and Augsburg went against the DFL's recommendation and were training in small groups last week as there were no state-imposed restrictions in place in their regions. Now, the type of group activity that can take place depends on the regulations from state to state. Some clubs can practice in bigger groups, for example, Schalke in groups up to 7 and Cologne up to 8, whereas others like Werder Bremen are still restricted to 4 players per group. So will this move across to the rest of Europe? Will Italy adopt this? I think Italy will be a little bit late coming back into it. I think Spain will also be a little bit late because both those countries have been really affected badly by the coronavirus, and England as well. And, I was reading a report actually concerning Tottenham, and Tottenham had to speak to their players after some pictures on social media saw Jose Mourinho leading a training session on Hadley Common with a number of players, and the social distancing guidelines would not be adhered to. So I believe that the Germans will. Well, we've seen it. They've already started to get back, but I can't see Spain, Italy, or England getting back sooner rather than later. I believe this could just go on for a lot longer, and the German sides already back in practice will have a little bit of an advantage, but don't fool yourself. The rest of these players will be on really serious, strict training regimes, whether they're at home or whether they're at small training groups. I know a team in Italy that had exercise bikes delivered to spinning bikes delivered to each and every member's house, so that they could have virtual integration spinning classes and that sort of thing. So it's going to take time, but it's also going to cost a lot of money. They're already talking that the Premier League could lose up to $1 billion if the season can't be ended. So you take $1 billion from there, add a few more billions from the rest of Europe, you're probably looking at a loss-making thing of about $3 or $4 billion in Europe, just if football is not concluded there. So it's going to be interesting to see how countries allow their players and clubs to get back to training and training as a group.
Z. The beating drum. The roaring fans. Take a ride on the wild side with the Africa Report on ZiFM Sport.
In the ABSA Premiership in South Africa, Bidvest Wits coach Gavin Hunt believes Kaizer Chiefs were let off the hook by the current COVID-19 pandemic, as their position at the top of the log was under threat. The PSL season is currently on hold indefinitely, with a date to resume yet to be announced, pending directive from government, who may just extend the current 21-day lockdown period. Now, Kaizer Chiefs, by the time they stopped the league, had gotten into a bizarre run of form. You'll recall that they lost to Maritzburg United 2-1, and then they were knocked out of the cup by Highlands Park after that 1-1 draw, and then knocked out on penalties, and then got that fantastic derby win over Orlando Pirates 1-0. That one ended, and then followed that up with a loss to AmaZulu. So their next opponent, no doubt Stellenbosch of Ovidi Karuru, were looking forward to playing Kaizer Chiefs, the Amakosi, in this bizarre run of form that they were going through. So I tend to agree with Gavin Hunt in saying that Kaizer Chiefs probably needed this break and needed to step back and rediscover their form. And no doubt Ernst Mittendorp, their coach, will be planning to make sure that his players click back into gear. Chiefs currently hold a 4-point lead over Sundowns, of course, and then Wits are a further 4 points back, but both these teams have a game in hand, and Wits also need to face the Amakosi home and away. No doubt, if Wits are harboring any hopes of winning the league, they would need to win both those games against Kaizer Chiefs. That's your wrap from the ABSA Premiership in South Africa.
Z.
Unfortunately, we ran out of time. We gotta go. But we'll be back tomorrow for ZiFM Sport on a Thursday. Throwback Thursday, the show that's short, sharp and sweet, where we bring you closer to your sports stars. Don't miss out on who the fantastic interview is going to be on tomorrow's show. But until then, take care of yourself and stay safe.